hard time ever getting in a pool and relaxing. I mean, nobody understood that. If I got into a pool, I wanted to swim or work out. But I went to Michigan. I was a chemistry major, pre-med, so I spent a lot of time in the books there and couldn't really train as much as I wanted to. So my college career wasn't that great. Then I went to medical school, and that was a grind for the next 10 years. And then went into academic medicine. So I never really had the time to get back into the water. There were a couple times that I swam for a summer on a master's team, but I enjoy being in the water, regardless of my past career, how good or bad I thought it was. I do enjoy getting in the water. I wish I could do it now. Everything's closed down here. It helps me. It helps me focus. My problem now is I'm just too old. I don't feel good in the water anymore because I'm just too old.
How often do you swim, or how often do you try to swim?
Very, very little. The California shut down for a while, then it reopened, and I'm in a community that has a 25-meter pool. It's got no lane lines, and it's got no gutters, and it's a wash tub. But I went there for 5 or 6 times over 2 weeks, and then they shut things down again. But I was just getting to where I could feel something in the water again. That's what I really crave. There are times when you swam that you were floating on the water. I can remember some workouts that just stand out to me. I remember going 400 or 500 meter swims, backstroke, and I was just killing them. And I don't know why. I mean, I just was going really fast, kept the whole setup high. I don't remember the times, but there were just certain times you felt that way. And that was something we always strive for in a big meet, was we called it, swimming out of your head. Throwing something down that you hadn't done before, and dropping 2 seconds in a 200, something like that. Never quite did that in a big meet, but the Water Wonderland meet I used to like. I think I always swam great there, and I think that was because I always swam much better when I was training very heavily. As we tapered down, sometimes it was better for me to train harder, longer.
Tell me more about these Water Wonderland meets. These came up, I was literally talking with one of the guys from the early 60s, and someone texted me and said, ask this guy about the Water Wonderland meets, and the response was they were amazing meets that were put on by parents, and they were really cool meets. But I've heard the Water Wonderland meets reference, but what do you remember about them? What made them cool?
I like Brennan Pool, although it was very cold. It was all concrete. It was 2 parallel 50-meter pools. The starting blocks were just concrete at the end. I just remember going there, and we treated it like a workout, and I'd swim everything. I'd swim the 1500, I'd swim the 200 and 400 freestyle, the 100 and 200 back. We'd be able to swim, there was a 200 and 400 and 800 meter free relay I'd swim, 200 medley relay. I'd swim the 200 IM. It was just fun, and they gave out the biggest trophies at the time. And yeah, it was just, I liked the pool, and it was just fun to be able to swim so many things. I liked being able to, I always swam the 1500 meter there, and we'd go down to Louisville, and they had a meet at Plantation, and it was a old quarry that they put like concrete bulkhead on the side of it, and a 50-meter pool in this quarry. It was the coolest place. And I enjoyed those kind of meets where I could start doing other events other than the backstroke, and probably because I felt less pressure. I'd be able to push Norm Chisholm in the 400 meter and the 1500, and I beat him a couple times when he was a sophomore, but not junior, senior. Those were fun. Brennan Pool was a cool place. We got to work out there a couple times, but couldn't get much full time there.
I've heard more about this crack in the pool and how freezing cold it was that, I mean, I could write a chapter just on the story using the quotes that I've had about how freezing cold that pool was, and guys like wrapped in blankets all afternoon trying to warm up after practice in the sun, and I've heard all of it for sure.
It was cold, and I guess that's the story I heard too, is there was a crack in the pool and they had to continually run in fresh water, and it was always super cold. But there was one time I was even colder, and there was a Christmas break, holiday break at Dearborn High, where the power was out for, I think, 5 days. And that pool got so freaking cold, and we were in there in the dark working out, and oh, man, was that cold. Never been so cold in my life after those workouts.
That sounds like something that would probably be like a report to the MHSAA right now if the word got out that during a power outage there was a lights out practice in a freezing cold pool, mandatory at minimum, you know, for sure. That sounds like a parent's report in 2020, but it was just par for the course in 71, right?
Yeah, and we got no sympathy from the coaches. Get in there and work.
You know, I know this is going to be a challenging question, but it's something that I try and ask everybody towards the end of their interviews. I ask them to kind of reflect on their career, and you've already said to me that that's a hard thing for you to do, but I'll ask you to dig in here a little. You know, when I ask you, what are you most proud of from your career, particularly for you, you know, like as I tee that up, I think it's really interesting that you said that like when you moved on to Michigan, you couldn't train the way you wanted to. And the reality that like that senior year state meet into Olympic trials in 72, as you reflect, you realize that that was really the core of what you now kind of consider to be your best training and your most focus, you know, on the sport. And so like a lot of what you probably reflect on in your career probably centers around that time. When you look at that time and that quick development in your career and the peaks that you did accomplish, the state records and the state championships and the things that you did, what are you most proud of? I'm
individually, I think I'm most proud of just that journey of being essentially a non-swimmer, a recreational swimmer, and getting into a good program, and over a period of 2.5 years going from someone who was a reasonable swimmer in the city of Dearborn in junior high to making the Olympic trials, and to, you know, at previous nationals making the consolation final. So being, you know, not the top swimmer, not a top threat in the country, but, you know, being there, being in the top 20 and top 25 in the world over that very short period of time. I'm proud of that. I'm not proud of how my college career went. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think as a swimmer, I did best over training. I think when I got to college and it was harder for me to get to workouts because I was taking chemistry and physics and math courses every semester. You know, I needed to do well to get into medical school, so I had to make a choice. And we didn't have the same type program we had in high school. It was different kids training differently. The coaching wasn't as intense as it was at Dearborn, and you know, that kind of still leaves sort of a negative impression on my overall career. I still could have done better. Now, in retrospect, I'm looking at things now with a level of maturity that I didn't have back then. You know, if I could take where I'm at right now and put myself back in a younger body, I'm sure I could do better, but that's part of growing up. I mean, so I think individually, just that journey, doing that, like you said, doing that so rapidly and getting to that stage that I did, to be in the top 20 in the country and top 25 in the world in my events, I think it's I'm really happy with that. I think collectively, I'm really happy with the same journey that the group of guys who started this intensive program when I did through Dearborn High, what we did in that 72 state championship. You know, they were kids that they scored at the state meet. They didn't make the nationals like I did, but you know, their journey was just as important as mine. And collectively as a team, that's a huge accomplishment. I thought, you know, we really made a statement.
I hope there's going to be a 50-year reunion. What are we, 2 years
so.
away? I hope the whole world can come back together and that team can come back together. That's a special team in Dearborn High School history.
Yeah, we did have a small reunion 2 years ago. We all went back and met at Jeff Longstreth's house in Michigan, and it was kind of cool. There were probably a dozen of us that made it, so I'm glad I was able to get back to Michigan to do that.
I'm sure. So let me ask the same question, but now I guess I'm kind of challenging you to look back at the second half of your life, post-swimming. Tell me about who you've become, and kind of, if I was to re-tee the question, what you're most proud of in the post-swimming chapter of your life.
You know, I approached my post-swimming life the same way I approached my swimming life, is always setting goals to be higher. You know, I went to Michigan, got a Bachelor of Science in Chemistry, which is not an easy degree. Took a lot of honors chemistry courses. Got into medical school at Duke, which is one of the top medical schools in the country, and stayed there for internship and residency in internal medicine, and then went on and specialized in hematology and oncology. You know, that program, that internship and residency program, was a lot like our swimming program. It was much more intense than most of the country. We called ourselves Duke Marines. We used to be on call 5 out of 7 nights. So you literally lived in the hospital. It was very old school, traditional. Worked very hard, and I'm proud of that. Had an academic career for about 12 years where I did basic research and clinical research, and taught and saw patients, and achieved some notoriety in the field of blood clotting, thrombosis, hemostasis. Presented, you know, at plenary sessions, which is at symposiums, and was a name there like I was in swimming, I guess. And then made a transition about 20 years ago, and went into industry. I've been doing drug development for a number of small companies, and been involved with a couple drugs that are on the market. But just 2 weeks ago, a drug that I helped develop took into the first in human trials. That it just got approved 2 weeks ago. So that's, you know, that's a huge market success for me. You leave medical practice, the gratification you get by seeing and helping patients every day. If you go into industry, you're sort of trading that off to hopefully being able to help thousands of patients with a new drug that helps. And you know, this drug is going to help a lot of patients with lymphoma. So I'm proud of that. I'm overall proud with the things I've done.
It makes breaking 54 seem trivial.
Yeah, it does. But you know, again, I credit with swimming with, you know, me being able to develop a discipline that I could carry forward and apply to the rest of my life, which I have. I still work too hard, but it's, you know, I still believe you got to put the work in. You know, I think effort beats talent every time if talent doesn't put in the effort. So, you know, I learned that in swimming. I remember seeing Mark Spitz, who was an incredible talent, but he didn't work out that hard from what people tell him. He could just go in and do it. And then there are people like me. I just had to work hard to achieve things, and that's how I've done it. So.